All right, guys. One Piece chapter 1054. One of the very explosive and also, I guess, I don't want to say controversial. There's just a bunch of agendas and shit going on. But I'm here with Ragnar.
What's good, everybody?
Ragnar, what's up, boy?
I've been good.
How you feeling?
I'm good. We just had like a 2-hour conversation. Now we can start the stream.
Nah, facts. But that's how it goes sometimes. But definitely happy you decided to join me today for this discussion.
Yeah.
We're gonna try not to make it too long, but we're gonna get into everything that happened in this chapter.
Definitely.
Let me ask you quickly, how do you feel about that Yonko spread with Buggy, Shanks, Blackbeard, and Luffy?
So yeah, I actually have the chapter open right now, and so let's just break down on the facial expressions, right? 'Cause I actually like looking at the way that Oda draws his art because it can tell us a lot. And for those that know that are listening right now, Buggy's facial expression is supposed to be emblematic or representative of him replacing Big Mom.
Big Mom,
yeah, the tongue sticking out. Whereas Luffy, as a mythical Zoan, is replacing Kaido. Now, in total, for the script that I'm writing, is how all four of these characters are chaotic in their own way, right? Each and every single one of them has just introduced chaos into the story. And so imagine for a moment that you replaced Luffy and Buggy with Kaido and Big Mom again. You think of the balance of power. You think of how Kaido and Big Mom, former members of Rocks, and so the endurance of the old era of pirates, right? It reflects stability in a way. Their disappearance from the color spread is indicative of the fact that the world is in flux. And so, and we're going to get to the Shanks part eventually in this discussion, but all of these characters is just up to no good, right? Every single one of them is up to something insane. You know, you look at Luffy just laughing. And I think that's kind of how a lot of us feel, or maybe how Oda feels. Is a better way of saying it, right? Where Luffy laughing is Oda really excited, in my opinion, to enter the final saga that he has been planning for a long while. I've seen people online say that where we're about to enter into the story is what Oda originally wanted to do, you know, towards the end of after having written One Piece for about 5 or 6 years, he had said. This was where we would have originally been without the introduction of the Shishibukai, right? And all the other stuff that came in between, without the time skip and all that other stuff. And so the things that are about to happen, I think, are going to hit us chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter, whether it's Buggy and what happened to Mihawk and Boa Hancock and everybody else, whether it's Luffy and the worst generation, his peers, and, you know, whatever island he goes next to and the chaos he, you know, obviously brings whenever he goes to another island. We don't know what Blackbeard was after. We just found about the reverie, and Blackbeard said if the Marines are after it, I might as well go after it myself. We don't know exactly what he meant. So where else would the Marines be, right? Because, again, your original question is, what do you think about the color spread? Each of these characters tell a story, and each of them is up to something. We know that Luffy's about to go to another island. He just defeated Kaido. His peers, which he contributed to, just took down Big Mom. Buggy, you know, became a Yonko. We don't know exactly why. Some people say it's because Shanks recommended him to be one, and I have an idea about that as well. You know, Buggy as well, in one video I made about him, about, you know, why he became a Yonko, is Buggy, as you know, is the leader, I think, right now, until we find out more about Shanks, of the underworld, in terms of, you know, Buggy overseeing, well, he lost the Giants, but his underworld operation, the Buggy, what's it called? Buggy Circus, Buggy whatever, Enterprise. I don't know what his business is called. Yeah. But he's basically overseeing a whole assortment of underworld activities, and that might have contributed, if Shanks wasn't involved, in them deciding, look, what does an emperor need to actually be worthy of the title of an emperor? And so they look at everything Buggy has influence over, and it's not just about how strong you are; it's about how much control you have over the seas, right? Over other people, how much influence you have in the new world. So that makes sense for him. Blackbeard, to get to him, he had said in the most recent time we've seen him, which I think we might get to see him again soon, if the Marines are after it or the world government, he might as well go after it himself. Now, where do we see that the Marines have been positioned, right? We see the Marines encircling Wano, which is weird that Shanks has been able to just sneak up in there, right? I'm waiting to see some reaction, because if the Marines, Greenbow said, send me some warships, right? He said, he had entered the island. He said, I need some backup or whatever. We can presumably assume that there are warships around Wano, and Greenbow was on one of them, and he kind of took flight with a flower on his back, right? And he flew into Wano. So Shanks somehow just, appears an apparition, or did he sail past them, right? Kind of like walking in the middle, right? Like how does he do this?
Shanks is like Jesus or something?
Yeah. Like, instead of walking on water, does he just teleport? And so we see,
as hell.
He walks into Marine Ford. We don't know how he got there. He gets into Merijawa, right? We don't know how he just walked in there. He appears at Wano. We don't know how he just shows up here, right? I think that's all cool. It kind of, gives into the theory of Shanks being a personally, quick, fast individual. But how does he get all his people in there with him? I think that's something to consider. Because, again, Wano's surrounded by Marines or world government ships or whatever, because they're trying to figure out, how do we get into this place? Greenbow's currently there, so they're trying to attack it. So you have to wonder, what Shanks is up to. But in lieu of Blackbeard said, if the Marines are after it, I might as well go after it as well. We can assume that the Marines are currently in an area or headed toward an area in which Blackbeard is now headed. And as far as we know, the only places where the Marines are headed are dealing with the other Shishibukai, which doesn't seem relevant to Blackbeard's goals at all, or going to Wano, right, in which the Marines, world government, currently surrounding the island. That's plausible. But we have Shanks here instead of Blackbeard. So I doubt we're going to get Blackbeard showing up and running into Shanks at the same time. Especially because, we're about to get into that. The last character on this color spread that you mentioned is Shanks. And Shanks, as we know, is up to a lot of stuff that we can't even really begin to guess. I mean, we can guess some of it.
I think with Shanks we can hold off until we get to the actual part, and then we can add some more context.
Yeah. There's a lot I want to say about that.
Yeah. So let's get into the chapter, right? Because now there's still Oda starts off with the flower capital in Wano, and basically the Scabbards, and I think the Scabbards, they're taking the front on this because they're the hosts, right? The host of the country, and Luffy just saved the country, so it's kind of like, let's not bother the others. Let's take care of this ourselves. But whilst walking up, Greenbow says the ability to sway others, that really is something. You don't see it very often. Who do you think he's talking about? Think it's Luffy?
So there are two candidates, I think, that we have for this sentiment. And one of them is Luffy, because, as we know, Marineford, Mihawk, he says, this is probably the strongest ability on these seas, right?
Yes.
The power to influence others, enemy and foe, and bring them to your side. And as we saw in Marineford, he brought Crocodile. He brought people he didn't even know. And he had obviously people that he did have some relationship with, and they all had his back. And that's one of the main reasons he was able at first, because people like to say that Luffy failed in, rescuing Ace. That's not true. He succeeded. Yeah. Ace killed himself. That's really what happened thereafter. However people want to take that. And he did so, well, didn't really kill himself, but he sacrificed himself, is a better way of saying it, to save Luffy. And in the same vein, I do think that there is some discrepancy we can draw from this. Oda's kind of being sneaky in a way like he usually is. And we learn of Sabo in the same chapter. Now, I made a video on this about the Flame Emperor, and as we talked about earlier, Brago, a lot of theories are often wrong and they go in a different direction. But I thought the Flame Emperor would be related to the Sun God, and I still think it is in a way. Because as we see from this chapter, which we'll get to, Sabo's known as the Sun God, Sabo's known as the Flame Emperor, and they also consider him a god.
Yes.
And Luffy is the sun god, and sun is attributed to fire, even though it's plasma, whatever, if you want to be technical with the science. But most people, average reader thinks it's fire. And so you have two fire gods. And I think Oda is doing something. I don't know what the importance of fire is. The Marinomi, the sun god, whatever. But now they're both being worshipped as gods. Or we saw in 1052 or 3, the chapter I think it was, where they were celebrating in a way as if he was a god, not just the sword god Ryuma, but they compared him to Luffy as Joy Boy, right? Without actually knowing that it was Luffy, right? That's what Luffy said when I went back and read it. That's why Luffy said, don't tell them it was me, because they're identifying that wanted poster of Luffy, which is interesting. It goes back to Shanks. When they see the Wano poster and stuff like that, or whenever they think of it, or whoever they saw, they see him as Joy Boy, right?
Yeah.
But when Shanks sees that Wano poster, yes, Luffy's name is on there. That kind of is a dead giveaway, but it also seems as if he's readily identifying, right, the picture of Luffy, and he knows what it symbolizes. But yeah, you have two gods of fire that are leading revolutions, right? Luffy freeing the country of Wano. Wherever he's gone in the past, he's inspired people and rallied them. He's rallied the worst gen, Kid, Law, other people. He's rallied the samurai, the mink, right? They call it the Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance to his side. We can't really know what Green Bull is thinking, but I would suppose that Green Bull is referring to Sabo. Right, I didn't mention this in my review, but that's what I conclude based on what happens at the end of the chapter, and based on what the chapter is titled, because we learn that Sabo somehow is sparking rebellions, right, resistance, inspiring people. I'm confused as to why they would be happy that he killed Cobra, even though he really didn't, in my opinion, right? It seems, in others' opinion as well, it seems like it's kind of set up, but they're inspired by his actions. And that seems to be the power to influence others. Now, does that mean Sabo is going to get conqueror's haki, right? Does it mean that he's going to, be a conqueror as well and influence others similar to Luffy? Is the power to influence others related to conqueror's haki? That's
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about him, because he's just leaving Udon prison, right?
Yeah, Green Bull, yeah.
How do you feel about Tama being an option here?
Tama.
Yes. Meaning, he said the ability to sway others. Whereas I'm thinking of if Tama.
Okay.
Whereas like everybody there was kind of subservient to Tama because she fed him the dango. He's like,
that's interesting. The ability to sway others, that really is something you don't see very often. Now, if they are somehow informed, obviously we have the Cypherpole agent that had gone and reported back to the Gorosei, who probably, delineated information down, top down, information system to the Marines, letting them know that one of the great contributors to the victory probably, in a way, was Otama, right? Her Devil Fruit ability, which I would like to get expanded on, because that's such an OP ability that it has to be more to it, right? That's a possibility, yes. But in terms of what really matters to the story, from what I can see right now, right, given the fact that we still know that Momonosuke can control Zunisha, even though it's cool to have seen, Otama influence the beast pirates and animals in general, I don't yet see, for example, if you remove Momonosuke, I think it would have a big effect on the story.
Yeah.
For all the Otama stands out there, I like Otama too, but if you removed her from the story, I don't think it has a very big effect on the story. I just don't. In terms of Ace, yes, it does. In terms of Wano and the relationship with Luffy, but in terms of just the overall story, Oda's already removed a lot of things that he's admitted to. I don't think that Otama and her Delphi power yet have an importance to the story that is clear. That's not to say that she's not important, but I don't know if Oda's made it very apparent why her power exists to begin with, if you know what I mean. Yeah, the Luffy's Delphi, now that's become even more clear why that matters, because it's directly related to Joy Boy, as someone has predicted. The Marinomi now with this chapter, though, is of interest, because there's theory about Ace having originally been Joy Boy and he ate the Marinomi. He, Sabo seen as a god again, Flame Emperor. You have two devil fruits that are related to fire or the sun, so flames in general. And another thing I mentioned once is how, Robin is considered it depends on the translation, but Nico Robin is considered the flame or light of revolution. And so there's a lot of fire, sparks of, flames of revolution.
Yeah.
This stuff is prevalent throughout Oda's story in terms of, Ace. In the Ace novels, even, I think that they said that Ace, or Shanks had even said, which is interesting given what happened in this chapter, or Ben Beckman has said it, that Ace would have been better off as a revolutionary.
The revolutionary.
Rather than a pirate.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I think, all right, I want to jump forward too much. Talk about Sabo and like the revolutionary. But here we have Green Bull fighting against the Scabbards, right? He pulls up, tells them to leave. Then they have no clue who he is, for the most part. All they know, he's an enemy of Luffy's from overseas. Then Green Bull starts spouting about the ways of the outside world and praising the celestial dragons as gods and saying that a country that has no ties to the world government has no standing. And he's basically talking about how the world works, and he talks about also hierarchies and humanity only getting this far because of hierarchies or enforcing hierarchies, and that they've got to put non-affiliated nations like Wano in their place, and the order is what keeps life going. But he also says prejudice breeds stability. Now it's a mouthful.
It's a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. I don't think everything is necessarily wrong about how the world works, but it seems like he agrees with it, which makes him just looks atrocious.
So I did see.
Also, he's a forest fruit, so he's a logia that's used like plants.
Yeah.
So
I do like plant logias, or not plant logias. I do like plant powers and shonen in general. Not to interrupt you, Brago.
You're good.
One thing I wanted to ask before we get into this particular panel is, how do you feel about the theories around Green Bull being Zoro's father, being from Wano, being related to Zoro or anyone from Wano in general? I know from O'Hara's recent he did the chapter review for this, I think, where he said that he still has some inkling, some sensation that Green Bull is related to Wano in some way, and maybe he's just testing them. I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't feel it.
His sentiments just don't. So for Sanji, right? Sanji and his father, as much as a disappointment as it was that Sanji's father was, whatever word you want to use to describe him, we see him. At first we see him as evil and a douchebag, whatever. And then he's a piece of shit. And then we see him crying during the wedding, right? We call it the Red Wedding, Game of Thrones, right? I don't know which came first. I don't know who plagiarized too, but we see Sanji's father crying, and I remember this is when I first started YouTube, and a lot of people were laughing at this. They were like, they couldn't believe it. Judge Vince Smoke, the scientist, they could not believe he was acting that way. So do you think that Oda, given how he often likes to compare Sanji and Zoro, do you think it would be believable if Green Bull were to actually be Zoro's father, even though I don't really think so anymore? I don't even know if I ever thought so to begin with. I kind of just commented on the idea and provided evidence to either support and refute it. Some people did believe it, though. I do think there could be room for us to be disappointed in who Zoro's father or uncle or whatever would be, right, acting this way. But just given what he's saying, based on what you just read off, Brago, I don't see it because somebody ranting about the celestial dragons being gods and how we're going to take your country and how you have to submit to us. It doesn't sound like a man that is from that place, right? It sounds like somebody that is. Yeah, it sounds like somebody that is. Yeah, it sounds like somebody that is a foreigner that is here to conquer the island. Yes. Right? It's not like what's he gonna do? Take his sunglasses off and they recognize him, right? Like,
oh,
right? Like,
I recognize you.
Or he's gonna run to Zoro and be like, "Oh, my son!" Like, it just be very strange.
The whole Remo being Zoro's dad thing was always funny to me. I've mentioned it before, just because people like talking about it. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's possible. Yeah. But if people still believe it is what it is, we'll talk about it.
And one of the things, Brago, actually that kind of I think gave a way out for people is when his power was revealed, right? To be when he was draining in 1053, I think, Queen and King, and we kind of can conclude after that he wasn't eating because he's a plant in a way, right? A plant man, and he was getting his nutrients from quote unquote the soil, or from soil being people. He was drinking people, right? Whatever you want to call it. He was, a lot of people thought it was photosynthesis or sunlight or whatever. But reality was, he was eating people. He wasn't actually eating real food. And, that's kind of what Green Bull's been doing. I'm sure he can stick his roots into the ground and maybe get nutrients from the ground as well. So he doesn't actually eat. And I would presume that he maybe got his devil fruit around the time when this happened. So, like you said, 3 years ago. And that's probably why, Oda's very good at, I don't think it's intentional. Oftentimes when you read a story for this long, people think that everything is going to connect. But the truth of the matter is authors are just human, even mangaka, right? And your ideas will often overlap. And so the samurai tend to not eat. They fast, right? They go hungry. The notion that every character that hasn't eaten in a while is somehow a samurai, It's
Yeah,
kind of like,
I don't believe that.
yeah. So yeah, and he has a sword too. People are like, oh yeah, he has a sword. He doesn't have a black blade. I think there's yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
that was
so.
a shame. Yeah,
It's
that was a
funny to
shame.
talk about though. It's
Yeah,
funny to
that
talk
was a
about him having a
shame.
black blade.
So,
Okay, so
but your original point was about how do I feel about him talking this way.
yeah,
So I had a comment about in my review about I mentioned how you've been watching the Peaky Blinders, Brago, the Peaky Blinders, and
no, I've never seen it.
you never. Oh, you need to watch it. Yeah, you need to watch it. I think his name's
I've heard some
Sicilian.
great things.
He's from the actor from I think from Red Eye. From anyone that's listening that's watched it, this show called Red Eye, where they're on a plane and there's this really creepy guy. He might be a serial killer. I don't know what he is. His eyes are kind of red. He is chasing after this woman, stalking her or whatever, and they're on a plane flight, and she's fighting to basically defend herself from him, and she manages to get away, and then he chases her back to her house. Spoil the movie for everybody listening, and she ends up, whatever, fending him off, whatever. But it's a really good movie, and he's an incredible actor. And in the movie right now, or in the series right now, not to spoil too much of Peaky Blinders, there's a moment where he's basically talking to fascists and Nazis or whatever. And there's a woman that talks about, the great cleansing and whatever, and a better society. And it reminded me of Green Bull, because Green Bull mentioning the celestial dragons, the gods, links to the Gorosei. When he first appears on the island, I think Joy Girl, or Sophie is her name, had actually originally pointed this out about the chrysanthemum flower. You ever heard of that theory, how the Gorosei are related to that flower, and how Green Bull, when he appears on Wano, is wearing that flower on his back, kind of like an emissary of the gods in a way. And so now we see him in this chapter, how he's kind of relaying his fealty and his attachment to the gods. We know that he stands a Kainu for whatever reason, a Kainu who is seen as he's considered the red dog, who is a lapdog of the gods, right? The Gorosei.
You know why he stands a Kainu?
No, I don't. I don't know why he said no. I had to pause him. I'm like, wait, do I know why he said? What does Brago know that I don't know? But yeah, like, so, he has a similar, motive to him, in which he wants he talks about racial discrimination, whatever. People were kind of memeing it, saying, oh, maybe he is Zoro's father, because Zoro's father, bigoted or whatever. Which, there's an argument to have. We don't yet know if he thinks a certain way about lower races in society. He hasn't interacted with Jinbei or any people yet. He's just kind of speaking about lower peoples in general. So I mentioned that, his devil fruit powers, Brago, often, you probably know this, reveal character personality. So Luffy, right? Freedom, the mythical zone Hitonomi model Nika, sun god, right? Whatever. Very long name. Let's just call it the Gomu Gomu no Mi. I like that better. The rubber power, power of freedom, the most ridiculous power in the world. Luffy is a ridiculous character. He is also a very free character. So his devil fruit overlaps with that, right? That sentiment. A Kainu, very hot-headed, angry, right? Molten lava, reduce everything to ash if he has to. Absolute justice, right? His devil fruit fits him perfectly. Aokiji is lazy. When things are very cold or whatever, you kind of slow down a bit, like, cellular life or particles, right? You talk about when objects are in a solid state, they're often very warm. And so with Aokiji, when things slow down, when it turns to ice, the particles are moving a lot slower. Supposedly, I'm not a physicist, but that's what I remember from basic physics. And so it fits Aokiji's character very well. I don't get what's going on with Kizaru and how it fits with him, but unclear justice when he has a light power, who knows. But Green Bull's devil fruit, nature itself, a subscriber had actually mentioned to me the laws of a natural law, right? or natural selection is what he said. And so it parallels Kaido, where Kaido has meritocracy, and we see him when he's first introduced, when he falls from the sky. We see that Kaido is introduced by the narrator. Besides a man that wants to die, we see him as there's a little box or bubble that says the strong live and the weak die, right? Yeah. And so this kind of fits with Green Bull, in which the strong live, the weak die. Though might makes right. Green Bull's basically saying social dragons are gods. We rule all of you. Bow before us. I mentioned how he wanted peace at first. He said, don't get in my way. He didn't actually want to fight them. He wasn't there for them, right? But one of the laws of nature, this is a class I took in undergrad, about political theorist class, about the laws of nature by Thomas Hobbes, and I have my script up here on the screen. He talks about how there are two laws of nature that ultimately lead individuals towards a state of peace. And the first law of nature is that every person should seek peace with others unless others are not willing to cooperate, in which case one may use what is called the helps of war. And so violence, as we saw from Greenbow's interaction with the Beast Pirates, was necessary. He told you to back off, he didn't back off, and so he has a right to attack you. There's another caveat, I don't have it actually in my script, but I remember it from my video, which I downloaded the picture for it, and it shows how another thing about the laws of nature is you sacrifice freedom for security. And so he mentions, nations that are not affiliated with the world government. His exact words on this panel are, do any of you have the first clue about the ways of the outside world?
Yeah.
The celestial dragons are gods. A country like this, one with no ties to the world government, has zero standing. And so it ties into the laws of nature. If you have not sacrificed your freedom for the security of being aligned with the world government, paying tribute to the Temerubito, the celestial dragons, you have no standing, right? You have not, aligned yourself with us, and therefore you are an enemy. We can deal with you however you want. And as I don't know if you got in this part,
there's no consequence.
We can do whatever. He basically says, he turns into a tree. He says we can do whatever we want to you, and doesn't matter. No law will be broken. And that basically aligns with Thomas Hobbes' vision of the laws of nature, which is what Greenbow is, a natural nature person that, might makes right. We can do whatever we want. Nature rules. Then the original state of mankind in the natural world is to kill or be killed, conquer or be conquered. This is basically outside of the realm of civil society that a lot of human beings existed in. And the reason why we as human beings entered civil society was, to establish laws, to protect one another from our natural inclinations. Yeah. And, Greenbow's showing what people are really like. I'm going to just destroy all of you is what he's kind of like right now.
That's a very interesting perspective. And of course, for me, I just in face value, what Greenbow was saying, I was like, I'm not feeling this admiral. The first
I saw that. Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm not liking at all.
I had a question. So why, in terms of, and I'm sure some of your viewers might have been wondering this, because Greenbow isn't only the piece of shit, admiral that we have. Kizaru's kind of, again, unclear, which is why he's easy to like, because he's kind of just doing his thing and he's a badass.
Yeah.
Aokiji is, in my opinion, my favorite admiral.
The great guy.
Not because he's but not just because he's a great guy or because his relationship with Robin, his character is phenomenal, but also just because maybe it is because his character's phenomenal. Like maybe that's why relationship with Robin, his relationship with the Straw Hats, his ability to evolve as a human being, very powerful, all that stuff. Maybe that is why I do like him as a character. Right, he's up there with Shanks for me. But I'm interested. I'm sure some of your viewers are interested as well, because Akainu, again, this guy stands Akainu. Why is it that you like Akainu but you don't like Greenbow? Is it his devil fruit? Is there any biases towards his power reveal, the way he's acting, or?
Well, I think the people that are the greatest pieces of shit in the story are the Celestial Dragons, right?
Okay,
there's nothing that can justify anything they do, right?
Yeah.
Just the slaves, just how they rule, how they're snobby, they're entitled. It's just nothing to like about the Celestial Dragons. Akainu does not stand the Celestial Dragons.
That's true. That's true. He might be a dog, right? But occasionally a dog will bite its master.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for Akainu, he's a piece of shit in regards to just how we view characters, but his goal is to get the job done. And I know we're kind of jaded because we're following a pirate story. So we look at all pirates as like the good guys, but most pirates aren't good guys. And so for Akainu, he's like, bro, I don't care what it is, we're going to get rid of all pirates. And I think what I like is the story is, I'm not going to say unfairly, but overwhelmingly on the side of pirates, right? And it's being told mostly from the perspective of pirates. So the admirals or the cops of the story, they're typically operating from a point of disadvantage. So for Akainu to be, or to come out as he did at Marineford, in my opinion, as somebody that doesn't give a damn what the odds are, doesn't care who anyone is, but he's still going to enforce his type of justice, which is absolute. It gives him a sense of not only danger that I love, right? That he is about his business, but also one of my issues with sometimes when an protagonist goes against an antagonist is that the story forces an antagonist to be inept, and then they start making mistakes or doing stupid things or it just doesn't make sense.
Like Big Mom.
For Kainu, like Big Mom, even in this instance of Green Bull, and then sometimes Kaido, right? Where things that they should normally or regularly accomplish, they don't because it's just doesn't make sense for the story. For Kainu, that's one character I think where Oda sometimes pardons that whole thing and it's like, all right, I'm going to let a Kainu do what he does because you need that balance, right? If it's overwhelming on one side with the pirates are just running amok, doing whatever they want to do, that makes for a very uninteresting story. So for
I'll keep it on with you.
Yeah,
I'll keep it on with you. Like if we replaced Kaido with a Kainu, right? For the criticisms I have about Kaido being considered even his flashback, they consider him what? What do they consider him? The berserker or the warmonger? What do they call him? The brute? They call him something that indicated that he's someone that should have killed a bunch of people. That's all I know. And that didn't happen. And so I feel as if it had been a Kainu in Kaido's place, right? I think that the criticisms would be even greater because a Kainu definitely, especially with his devil fruit, right? Yeah. There's no way
you expect more casualties.
There's gotta be a lot of casualties if he's going all out. Just given his
ambition.
And
we'll talk about it with the admirals in regards to how things go. But I think that's the thing with Green Bull is for Akainu, I understand why he has that mindset because pirates aren't good people generally.
And
right?
we'll get his backstory eventually.
We'll get his backstory at some point. But for Green Bull, he's defending celestial dragons. I can't.
And
I don't resonate with that at all. I can't.
I'm trying to
understand
Rob Lucci, and with Rob Lucci, it's not
Rob
even
Lucci's the same way.
And for me, for Rob Lucci, it's not even really that he really cares about celestial dragons. It's an excuse.
Yes,
Rob Lucci is literally the serial killer of One Piece, in my opinion. You look at that show called Monster. They just like killing people. It makes them feel
in his
alive.
Name, in their name, he gets to do whatever he wants.
And that's the real reason he doesn't actually like to. Like if the world ended, Brock. If the world ended. And it was just Rob Lucci on an island with celestial dragons. He'd kill all of them. He probably kill them too.
But for Green Bull, it seems like he really worships them in a way, or just he understands
and that's weird.
And he goes along with the message. So that's why it's not likable. Maybe things will change. Maybe he is just testing them, and he's from Wano, and he's trying to see where their mind is. But as we move on, though, because we got to try to get through this.
That's true.
Basically, we have Green Bull going against the Scabbards. And I know people are saying that Green Bull took an L because he got hit by Yamato. And, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me just because...
No, yeah. And again,
go ahead.
Yeah, on Twitter, I actually saw, people... It was a pretty accurate comparison. They had
Kaido getting hit by all the Scabbards.
They show Kaido, and not just that, Yamato actually... And I completely forgot this, I gotta go back and read it. They smacked, Yamato apparently smacked Kaido's head into the ground. I overlooked that, sending his head plummeting into the ground with Advanced Conqueror's Haki. And Kaido got back up, and it kind of hurt his head a little bit. And so it's no different,
It's no different.
No different at all. And so, the meme that I retweeted of you and King Lightning was funny. just because it's like they have you in place of Kuroma, and they have King Lightning speaking for Akainu.
It's funny. It's funny. Listen, the shit me and King talk about, that's amazing entertainment. People like it. So
that's been going on for years too. It's like who is stronger, right?
It's been going on for years.
Yeah, and still no decisive.
The crazy part, with the Admiral and Yonko debate is that I've always said Yonko is stronger. My issue is the gap that people try to
it's not that big.
Portray. It's not that great, but Yonko, I think they are stronger. In this instance, Green Bull is just fending off these guys, and I don't know, Momonosuke being here, not fond of it, just because it's clear that Momonosuke shouldn't be in this arena yet.
Yeah, and the problem that's going to rise is if they try to force Momonosuke into a position of taking on an admiral and like making him like bend, fall to his knees or whatever's going to happen.
That'd be silly.
That'd be silly. They're giving an opportunity where it's like, oh, he's severely wounded, an admiral. How? What has he done? Like if he trained with Zoro, then maybe if he learned some new tricks or whatever, but just in the moment, just giving him the means to do so. Especially after we saw what Yamato can do. How's Momonosuke going to hurt him if he doesn't have advanced conquerors?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make any sense. So I don't see what the purpose is. Maybe stalling him, maybe showing he's brave, but even then, I don't see the
I'm
need
just
for
assuming Momonosuke does something to talk him off the ledge. Where
diplomatic, because that seems to be what his strength is.
Because what happens here is Oda has to protect some characters. He has to protect sometimes the admirals, has to protect sometimes the other characters. If Green Bull defeats all these guys and he goes to the party, how do you justify Green Bull even winning that?
Green Bull can't. Yeah, he can't win that. Especially after what we've seen, he can't win that.
Unless Green Bull gets stronger from using other people's energy.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
right, because that could be a thing as well.
Because he was draining.
I think Green Bull, knowing more about the situation, it seems like he came to Wano just to make up for what happened in Mary Joa. But quickly before we talk about that, when Momonosuke telling Yamato to stay out of it, we're assuming something diplomatic could happen, right?
Yeah. That's my assumption. But then again, as we mentioned, Bravo, like how many fights has Momonosuke attempted to diffuse diplomatically? Where does his skills of diplomacy I don't know which grammatically correct. Where do his skills of diplomacy originate? Right? Like, where do they arise from? I can't remember an instance yet in which Momonosuke has used diplomacy. For example, he's grown, but he was artificially grown up, right? So his maturity, where does that stem from? We can critique somebody getting a sudden power boost, but at the same time, you have to critique, sudden growth in character as well. Out of nowhere, suddenly he's this expert, this craftsman of dialogue, in which he can convince somebody not to, fight. What's he going to offer Green Bull in exchange for not attacking? What Green Bull clearly wants is Luffy. That's not going to happen. So these characters need to show their fealty to Luffy as, basically the new sword god, even though it should have been Zoro, but, the Joy Boy, the protector, Wano's guardian, whatever you want to call him, of the country. And so what they're doing right now is showing their loyalty. Some say Yamato's kind of, there's a little clip that was made, an edit of Yamato kind of showing off that you can't come for the king, right? You can't go straight for the king, kind of like with Marco and Whitebeard. And so you have Yamato out here kind of like saying like, hey, I want to be a Straw Hat. That hasn't been resolved yet as far as I know, even though they were in the pool together and everything, joining the crew. So who knows? But Yamato out here saying like, nah, you can't come for Luffy. The Scabbards feeling the same way. It's not even all the Scabbards even. So he wants backup. The other admirals aren't here. Now, if Kizaru shows up, which is a possibility because Kizaru can travel at the speed of light, that's that could happen. But if no other admiral shows up, SSG is the only option, and that would depend on how strong you think the SSG is, right? So
SSG they have to be somewhat formidable to say that they're replacing the warlord. So I expect them to be very impressive. We got to move on to Shanks though. Shanks, where we get they're around Wano, right?
Okay, this is what
Shanks is talking about Luffy, right? When they first pull up, and everyone, including the audience, is thinking we're about to go see Luffy, right? Talks about Odin, talks about Hiyori and Momo, like he's about to see full-grown Momo. We have Usopp, or Yasop being a deadbeat. Lucky Roo is ready, right? They're talking about Kid, right? Saying Kid's here, right? Kid's here too, right? And then Shanks looks at Luffy's picture and we get some flashbacks.
Shanks doesn't even acknowledge Kid. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's like, whatever. He's looking at the picture of Luffy or Luffy in the magazine or the newspaper. And then they reminisce to when they attacked Who's ship. We see a young Who's Who. They're saying only some minor devil fruit was on this ship. Shanks says he doesn't matter. He's going to go take that ship. And we see Luffy's growth, Shanks telling him stories. And then we see a very sinister smile from Shanks, right? So what do you think about all this?
So, just before we move to the rest of the Shanks stuff is what you just mentioned with Shanks and Who's Who. So this is very important. I only just realized now that you brought it up, Brago, is how does Shanks know, if we do believe that he knew what the Gomu Gomu no Mi actually was, how did he know that they had it? Where did they get it from? I think those are questions that are worth asking. Where did they discover it? Was it some devil?
Well, there's definitely. Well, I think obviously the world government has informants.
Yeah, informants. But for example, Blackbeard as a parallel to Shanks because they're both out here collecting things. Maybe right.
Power. It's a power struggle.
Yeah, power struggle, and it seems like they're both trying to control the narrative in a way, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens next. And so you see that Shanks somehow knew that this ship I presume it was him that knew it, and he directed his team to follow. They knew they had the Hito Hito no Mi, or Nika, or Gomu Gomu no Mi,
Yeah.
and they went after it. But how did he know that? Right? I do think that is worth inquiring about. And also, where did the world government get it from? Did somebody else
Yeah.
have it? Did they die? Was it on
Where
an
they
island?
transformed it, yeah.
Where did it come from? Was it just sitting
Yeah.
somewhere? Where do devil fruits come from? Was it growing from a tree and inhabited a random fruit? Where did it come from? Because we know that these fruits, when they pass away, they inherit a new person. Was there somebody else in that era that had the Gomu Gomu no Mi at the time, and they just happened to randomly die off or whatever? That's something that's interesting. But besides that, yeah, I mean, these are kind of things that we had already theorized on, that, Shanks had an awareness. This is kind of what Oda touched on in his recent interview. A lot of people have been guessing how this would play out. And, even though it's somewhat distinct from what people had guessed, it kind of, fits in what we've been saying, that Shanks intentionally, gave Luffy the fruit. He had been planning for it. He knew what it was, blah, blah, blah. And we're kind of seeing that in chapter 1054. Even Who says, only some minor devil fruits. So Who didn't really realize himself what the Gomu Gomu no Mi really was. Now that goes back to some of the criticisms of the Gorosei, whatever. How is it possible that they don't know what this devil fruit could originally do? But again, base properties don't always define what a devil fruit can actually do, right? So, a lot of devil fruits in Oda's story have similar properties, right? For example, oven can create heat. What if the Mera Mera no Mi was some special devil fruit, but the person that had it could, the person that had Ace's devil fruit, like Sabo, could only use heat, right?
Yeah,
would you assume that it was only Oven's fruit, right? Or would you recognize it was the Mera Mera no Mi? So it depends on what you can do with it. But yeah, getting to, what comes after that, Brago, I don't know if you want me to take it to the next.
Yeah, let's go. Let's move on.
Okay, yeah. So, after what you just said, we go to, we see the flashback of Shanks. We see, Luffy. We see some, new scenes in a way of Luffy, celebrating in the bar. We see a really cool panel that I do want to touch on, and it's with Shanks and Arthur. I'd even mentioned something that I mentioned in some of my videos, with the straw hat that is supposed to represent the dawn, right? And Shanks is kind of holding it in front of the sun. And Arthur on Twitter echoed his own thought. Well, my thoughts kind of echo his, with, the sun kind of eclipsing, or the straw hat kind of eclipsing the sun in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so it's supposedly an eclipse, and we think of the Yami Yami no Mi, Blackbeard's awakening, the power of darkness, theories about him truly being able to use his true power when it's fully dark outside, all that stuff out there, an awakening of darkness that should turn the world pitch black, or whatever it would happen, right? Or somewhat dark. You see Shanks kind of covering the sun, and as Arthur says, this is famous from Transformers, the movie, or whatever, where they talk about, it's always darkest, the dark side of the moon is always darkest before the sun, or whatever it's called, however that quote goes.
Before the dawn, I think.
Darkest before the dawn, you're right. Yeah. And so, you do kind of see that here, where Shanks is playing with the hat, right? Like, kind of like when you're a little kid, peekaboo, right? Like, can you see me? You can't see me. Can you see me? And so, you kind of see the hat kind of covering the sun. Oh, it might be a reach, who knows? We go next to, Shanks, the sacrifice he made. And this is all intertwined. So we see Luffy smiling, the smile, joy, boy. We see the straw hat and the rising sun, the dawn, and then the lesson being passed down clearly. We see Shanks sacrifice his arm, and the dawn linked to the new age and the return of Joy Boy. All these scenes are intertwined. And then we go to Shanks' missing arm and the bet that he placed on the new age when he told Whitebeard, right? Well, what kind of enemy did you lose it to? Whitebeard asks. And Shanks says, I, placed a bet on the new age, the new era. Now, what's interesting is this transitions us into Shanks saying that, it's finally time to go after it. And I mean, there's some things we probably want to cover before we get to that. But, Shanks kind of says, it's strange that Shanks now all of a sudden is ready. And that's what I brought up in my video. What has he been doing? Right? What has he been doing for 20 years?
Why is he not ready?
It indicates that he didn't care, right? He was not an active participant, as many of us had thought, right? He was just kind of sitting around, drinking, partying, right? Sleeping around, whatever he was doing, right? He has some kids here and there, maybe Makino for one, but now all of a sudden he's like, it's time, right? 20 years, that's some mental commitment. We often talk about, Ben Beckman. I think he was said to be one of the smartest characters in either the series or East Blue. Yeah. And kind of like Shikamaru in a way, for those that like Shikamaru. And maybe Shanks, if Rayleigh is similar to Roger, blah blah blah. Zoro has similarities to Luffy. Maybe Beckman has similarities to Shanks. Maybe Shanks is actually pretty bright, despite acting like an idiot. And so he's been prepping for this for a long time. And now, like, just a patient motherfucker, bro. He's just patient. He's like, hey, Beck, very calm, no stress, sitting down. Probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, moment in the entire Wano arc, if we can still consider a Wano, depending on what happens after it's over, what they consider it. He just sits down at the table, right?
Very
calculating, no stress, right? Badass. And Beckman too. And then you can see the look on his face. And we'll get to that in a moment, I guess. But, he says, hey, Beck, isn't it time to go and get the One Piece or claim it? And it's just like, there's so much in this panel that I guess we can get to shortly. But do you want to take it off, Brago, from where they say, I guess the top officers have a pass with him, whatever? Or do we just skip over that? I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about like
I skipped
boys, the new cabin boys.
I skipped from him losing his arm to that's what I did in my review too. I just skipped over.
That's all good. They have no idea they know who Luffy is, but they don't know about their relationship. So I'm assuming all these people joined the crew after Shanks and Luffy's interaction at the beginning of the story. So Shanks goes from saying. Well, it goes from indicating or somewhat implying that Shanks is about to meet Luffy to Shanks saying, I'm not planning to have a reunion with Luffy here. Right? And everyone's kind of just shocked. Well, mostly everyone. Ben Beckman's still pretty calm. And then Shanks, in a way, because Oda's hiding his eyes, his face as well, and the smirk, it's telling me he's lying. Like, this isn't the reason why he's not having a reunion. But he's not telling everyone, right? Because I don't know if he tells everyone if they're willing to do what needs to be done. I don't know. It could be something like that.
You just actually reminded me of something, and maybe I'll talk about this because I'll just put it here now. So first of all, I saw on Twitter there was someone that highlighted, maybe it was Eric Tolado, right? I think it was Eric, right, from Red Force Podcast, and he had highlighted a portion. People said he was coping. I don't know, but he highlighted a portion of Shanks saying, "I'm not planning." Right? He highlighted that. Planning is the key word. To have a reunion with Luffy, highlight here, right? So I'm not planning to have the reunion here. It doesn't mean that we're not going to meet again. Now, that could mean anything.
I mean, obviously they're going to meet again, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's like, why would you not meet here, Luffy's checked every box that we felt like he needed to, but we don't know Oda's plan, so I don't think this is a bad thing. I would never say this is a bad thing. I just say that it made me feel some type of way initially. You know what I mean? It's not a bad thing. We just don't have the full story, so we're just going off of how we feel based on where things are right now. That's it.
Yeah, I felt kind of ominous about it because you look back at Marineford, Braga, and when you often see authors do this, you find I won't say plot device, but you find every single possible reason and excuse to not let these characters reunite. When is it going to happen? What are you delaying it for? Right. Yeah. And then the tragedy, the sense of like, imagine how painful that would be for us readers. And again, another Ace moment, right? Where it's like,
it doesn't happen.
Damn. Yeah, that'd be so hurtful. I think for a lot of people that like break their hearts. Like the idea of, because the thing is, it's important for authors at times to try and get you to relate to the character. And so as for Luffy, the sense of, excitement that Luffy would feel to meet Shanks again is very parallel to how we feel. We want it to happen too. We want to meet Shanks again. And so the feeling that we have of seeing Shanks again here would be tantamount to the same feeling that Luffy would have if he saw Shanks again. Of course, Luffy would feel a lot more stronger about it than we do, but it's similar. And so, this, delay, it's not time yet. If Shanks, and this is one of the things, I think there's a lot of different caveats as to how it could happen. Maybe they meet again, they have a Davy back fight. And then maybe something happens to Shanks after, because I just can't envision Shanks being alive for the end of the series. That's just my personal opinion. Even if you do believe that Luffy and Shanks have to meet again, I think that it just doesn't make sense for Shanks to be alive at the end. Certain characters have to be gone. You have to get rid of them. A lot of authors struggle with that. George Martin, whatever his name is from Game of Thrones, I think that's his name. You have to kill your characters. You can't hold on to them. I even saw recently he revealed, George R. R. Martin, he said, the Red Wedding, he delayed writing it until the very end of that book. He wrote everything first, and then he wrote he wrote the story with the characters not even being present anymore, because as an author he was attached to his characters, and it made him cry to kill them.
Yeah. And so, clearly Oda's attached to a lot of his characters.
And
honestly, as much of a benefit that the characters are to One Piece, is become somewhat of a detriment because there's so many characters you can't focus on all of them.
And you have to get rid of them, and
It's
you do have to wonder if he maybe kind of realized that, and that's why he just kind of said, you know what, let's just get rid of Izo and Ashura Doji because it didn't really serve any purpose after the fact. He just kind of randomly did it, and he did admit that he changed a lot of stuff, and he has to be cognizant of the criticisms. And so, you know, my personal opinion, you know, just brief tangent because I know we have to finish this up, but like, you know, Shanks, Monkey Dragon, especially what we find about Sabo in this chapter, you know, their futures, you know, Garp, these characters, maybe Garp could be around, but you know, a lot of these characters, I can't imagine, you know, Rayleigh even mentioned, you know, maybe it's okay if I live a little longer, is what Rayleigh says, right? When he thinks about Luffy and, you know, how he reminds him of Roger. Some of these characters, I just can't see them being alive. But how does Oda kill them all off? With who, right? You need to have an antagonist that can do it. So who knows, you know? Yeah,
I want us to get to like the admirals and revolutionaries. So give me your thoughts on that. I guess with Cobra being dead, quote unquote, because there's a part of me that don't think he's dead. You know how I am.
Before, I want to see bodies. Wait, Shane, so it's about before we get to that. Can we just talk about one panel before we do that? Yeah. So real quickly. So this is the panel that I brought up to you earlier before we started streaming. The panel that, and I want to get your thoughts on it. When you saw the page of, you know, Shanks pours the sake cup, he sits down next to Ben Beckman. You see Oda, and again, this is the author, the mangaka, carefully picking what he wants to show. I think Oda's been wanting to draw this for a long time. And you see him pouring it out. Remember the sake cups he poured, that are poured for, you know, Sabo visits Ace and Luffy's grave, the same sake cup, right? You see when they're kids, they pour the same sake cup. It indicates a promise to one another or a promise to somebody. This cup maybe is important. Maybe the bottle's important. Maybe he wanted this bottle to be drank or poured out for a specific reason. Nobody else is drinking from this. It's just Shanks and Beckman, right? Even to the number, it says number 5, 617 sake. What if this was the same bottle that, you know, Roger and Rayleigh had drank before the last time they saw each other? That'd be dope, in my opinion. Maybe not, really, but that'd be cool. But you know, Shanks says, you know, hey Beck, you know, isn't it about time to go and claim it? You know, and then you see what Oda chooses to do with, you know, Ben Beckman's face, right? He cuts off his mouth. You can't really see anything, right? You just see his eyes, and you know, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And what we readers see from this expression is a lot of pain, a lot of endurance and struggle. Many years to get to this moment, right? We don't really know what it means, but it's just like it just draws you in. And then also the following panel is of Shanks, cuts off the top of his head, cuts off his mouth. Can't see a smile, can't see a frown. Don't really know what's going on, but you see Beckman's eyes are very pained, as if he's worried for his captain. And then you see Shanks' eyes; they're like dead. It's like you know, he goes from you know, smiling at the Wano poster earlier. He goes from being very thoughtful, taking a sip of the sake, calculating, and then you see, you know, the One Piece, right? So and his eyes are focused, like he can see it, like he's not seeing the world.
Like he's ready for it.
He's seeing something ready for in front of him.
Whatever it is he's going after. And so like the only indication of this is that he's saying going after the One Piece means going after Blackbeard.
I like that. I like that because he's aware of what might happen to him, but it's necessary.
But it's necessary
because he knows Luffy, and I think it is a sacrifice. Again, going back to the hat that is always darkest before the dawn, right? Even if you know, and when the funeral, you know, for Whitebeard and Ace, before we move on to the animals, you know, the funeral for Whitebeard and Ace, where he says, you know, I know this hurts you. I hope you can overcome it. Imagine how much more will hurt him. I mean, Ace definitely hurt him. If he loses Shanks, hope, you know, and Jinbei obviously probably prepared him for it. You know, what remains to you, so he'll be ready if anything happens to Shanks. But you know, there are things that Shanks has to do, and I think the earliest hint of Shanks dying is him losing his arm and saying it's just an arm. And I said this on Twitter at some point. I said that if Shanks were to die, I do believe that Shanks would say it's just a body, right? Like he doesn't care, or he doesn't care, but there's so
just another sacrifice.
Just another sacrifice. And that's one of the,
I like that. I like that perspective a lot. It does make it seem like Shanks is his resolve, right? He's resolved to do whatever needs to be done. And Ben Beckman does have a concerned look. It wasn't a look of, you know, the eager.
And the thing is, like, even though who did he recruit first, Brago? Like he recruited Yasop first, right?
Yasop, right?
And yet, for whatever reason, Ben Beckman seems to have a greater, deeper understanding of his captain.
Yeah.
Of the others are more playful, but Beckman's kind of like, I know what you have to do. And it does give Rayleigh vibes in a way, right? We're finally kind of seeing that, but we can move on. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Sabo is now the Flame Emperor because of everything that transpired at Mary Joa. Cobra's dead. Sabo's getting blamed for it. Vivi's kidnapped. Sabo's getting blamed for it. And basically, he started a whole rebellion because they attacked the homes of celestial dragons in the Holy Land. They destroyed a monument of the divine dragon claw and the symbol of the world nobles, right? So declaring war, and they went against two admirals, Fujitora and Green Bull, and they were also successful in freeing Kuma, and they managed to escape. So just overall, just a bad showing for the admirals. And
very bad showing.
Saying they were in the Holy Land, and Akainu saying don't make excuses. So
we had Brago di Karoma making excuses.
pretty much, right? Which he's factual, speaking facts, because in a situation like this, Green Bull hard countered by Sabo. Secondly,
I agree. Yeah.
Fujitora,
and actually, you made that argument, I think, for Marine forward, right? The admiral's trying to protect the island.
They have to. It's like they're always in that position where they have to be more cognizant of what's
back
going on.
and not go all out.
You know, and so with Sabo coming in with flames, Fujitora can't just spam gravity because then fire is going to go all over the freaking Holy Land.
They're too powerful too. They're going
to be a lot more careful.
And if you hurt a celestial dragon, like that's a big sin.
That's a big deal. So it's partly protecting, partly holding off, and Sabo isn't a slouch. And I think we have underestimated the Revolutionary Army commanders, the other guys. And something people aren't thinking about is Bonnie. Bonnie is a factor here, right? Bonnie probably more than likely helped them. And they probably could still be underground in Marijoa right now, right?
And Bonnie probably escaped,
And Bonnie definitely, that was her purpose here. And if she didn't help them, then what was the point of you being here?
Because the thing is, their aims also aligned. Sabo and Bonnie at the same time were both trying to save Kuma, and they probably did so together. And one of the ways to escape, I don't think she made them kids to escape necessarily. Maybe she did. Who knows? But they managed to get out of there.
And also, I would say this, with Bonnie and everything she's trying to accomplish, I think at this point we need something in regards to her story, or start wrapping up her story. So that's going to tie into it. And even though I would say that the admirals overall, this is not a great showing, Oda had to establish the revolutionaries, right? We're getting to the end game. You have to make it seem like they're part of the battle. Yes, suddenly, with Dragon and all the things that he's been doing, if you pay attention, he's been doing things, right? But it's been in the background. The people needed a hero, though. And so, like we were talking about earlier, what Sabo is doing is what Ace was meant to do, right? What Ace was probably best suited for, because
it's marketing. It's marketing. It's not enough. It's not enough to to actually be a thinker, right? And a philosopher like Dragon would be, and a schemer. You need to have somebody that can be. You need face.
Somebody, a rah guy, right? And so Ace,
that's what fire is,
right. For Ace, he wanted to break the wheel, right?
Exactly.
In a way, he wanted to be infamous. He wanted to be more famous than his dad. He wanted to be known as. He wanted Roger to be known as Ace's son.
Ace was a combination of Sabo and Luffy,
right? Yeah, he wanted Roger to be known as Ace's father, and so Sabo is basically carrying on the will of Ace, which I love, and it's making him become a bit more endearing to his character, because he's Ace. He's carrying on what Ace was supposed to do. And so you absolutely love it. I think Akainu's speech at the end, just speaks to his character.
Yeah. When Akainu says, he's reached the rank of fleet admiral during one hell of an era. And then he says, I don't care where they try to hit us. Now it depends on the translation. In the translation that I liked, he said, I will finish them all. Right, like that was bad. I was like, you gonna finish them all. I was rooting for him. I said, you take them all out.
People shit on admirals all the time, right? And that is what it is.
Yeah,
but Akainu's the one admiral that they like, all right,
Yeah,
you got to give him his respect.
But what he really said was he'll strike back on every front,
fire on all fronts.
And that kind of expands on what might happen, in which revolutionaries, the pirates, Blackbeard, Shanks,
they're gonna
Luffy,
be, bro. You have to balance it. It can't just be all overwhelmingly.
But here's the problem. Like, after what we've seen from Green Bull, right? And this is what people are talking. They're saying, what are you going to do? And, the SSG, we need to see what that is. One of the things I've been thinking is, if the SSG are like, borderline admiral level, then I can see them taking on the pirates. the way I see it right now, if you send Kizaru, Mihawk is gonna bar. I think I personally think Mihawk would body Kizaru. We put up a fight, but I just can't see it. Mihawk is very. I mean, Kizaru is very strong, but I just can't. You have
Yeah,
Mihawk
I think
out
Mihawk
there.
probably wins, but I don't
Yeah,
think it's
me.
yeah, I don't think
Easy,
body.
yeah. It's probably not easy, yeah. But the thing is,
Yeah.
you compare Kizaru to Rayleigh's fight, and recently I was reading that chapter, and you see what he said about Rayleigh, and some of what Kizaru's words indicate a slight struggle, and indicating like, we need to bring a bunch of more people to take you, to capture you.
But
I'm
think,
like,
yeah,
why?
to capture you. Remember,
Yeah,
to
I'm wondering-
capture you. Because
okay,
partly
not
of
to
that
kill.
situation as well, when you first got there, remember they talked about Kizaru, you got to chill out. They got the
Yeah.
mangroves. You can't just go crazy here.
Oh,
You
yeah,
see what I'm
okay, you're
saying?
right. Again,
The
this
admirals,
is
they're
once
always in
again,
that precarious-
always trying to protect things around you.
Yeah. they're
Everybody
always-
making excuses for these.
Nah, that's the thing where it's like
It's-
it's always a precarious position for an admiral because you can't just be.
It's intentional. Yeah, you're right. It's intentional. It's kind of like anyway, like a plot device. Like, okay, I'm gonna put something here.
Yes,
That you
yes.
can't. Like, imagine if you
That's
in a
what
street
Oda
fight.
does.
You in a street fight with somebody, and they gonna put something very expensive in front of you. You can't go all that.
You
can't
and
go
Oda
all
does
out.
that with like the admirals because it's
Yeah.
like he's trying to indicate like, hey, these people are pretty powerful, but they
And he-
have a different responsibility.
Yeah, and he probably doesn't even also always want to give away. I think he may even mention that, right? Like he doesn't want to let us know
He,
who's
he
stronger.
doesn't want to let us know the strength in regards to these
Yeah.
characters. So it's
He
like
wants
a
us to
very
enjoy
convenient
them.
plot device. Very
Yeah,
convenient.
because if we did know definitively who's stronger, imagine the
It wouldn't
impact
be as
that would have
interesting
on
to
the
talk
story.
about.
Yeah, and we'd have an expectation like, oh yeah, you weaker. You're not
Yeah.
gonna do anything to these guys, so we don't really
Which
care.
isn't how One Piece operates. So,
Yeah, we won't. You want to be left wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess give me your final closing thoughts on this
Yeah,
Sabo
my
stuff and
final
Revolutionaries.
thoughts would be.
Yeah.
So I guess we just start off rushing. So one thing that I mentioned is Sabo, Flame Emperor, considered a god. Luffy, Sun God, also as Red Hawk, power of fire, attributed to Ace. In a way, also a Flame Emperor. It's strange that fire is so important to these two characters. I don't know what fire has to do with the end of the series and the Spark of Rebellion. You also see whenever they're having those celebrations for the Sun God, right? There's always that fire, and they're dancing Skypiea, Wano, the Fire Festival, right? And so you see that with the two of them, Marinomi, the Hito Hitonomi mythical Zoan, dealt with the Sun God. It seems to be important for anyone listening right now. You got any ideas? Like, comment, subscribe, leave the comments, in Brago's, comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. But other than that, I want to go back very briefly before we finish this, just for 1 or 2 minutes. The panel with Shanks again. I am interested in figuring out what is going to happen next. What are his plans? It's been 20, 25 years, however long Shanks has been planning. How old is he? 38? Right, he's 38
Yes,
years old,
38, 39,
and whenever, I don't know how old he was when Roger died, but I think as soon as Roger died, all of this was put into motion. Maybe I don't know what Shanks did right after that. I want to know, in terms of Shanks' flashback. Yeah, I made a video on this. What happened to Roger's body? We see him die, but the same way that Shanks buries Whitebeard and Ace, I can only presume he buried Roger. What happens thereafter? What was their promise? I'm sure that Shanks considered it, and then he's been moving deliberately towards it. Someone mentioned to me recently that he promised that he would come back to Laugh Tale with Buggy. Is it really that important to him to do so? And why would it be important to him to do so? Why would he care? Right?
Yeah.
Kaido wants the One Piece for a reason, right? He wants to have a great war, blah, blah, blah. Big Mom, we know what her dream is. What is Shanks' dream? And I think that everybody needs to consider that. What is Shanks' dream? Because Oda's story is a story about dreams. All of the characters have dreams, whether they're dreams that align with others, whether they're personal dreams. What is Beckman's dream, first of all? Maybe he just wants to just sail with other pirates. But Shanks' dream, I think, is imperative to understanding exactly what maybe the One Piece is, or exactly what, why Roger would have loved to have been born in Joy Boy's era. Because right now, Shanks is alive in Joy Boy's era, the return of Joy Boy. If we can figure out what Shanks' dream is and put those pieces together, I'm sure some of you are ingenious, you're geniuses listening to this right now. Maybe we can come to understand exactly what Oda has planned for the final 3 to 5 years of One Piece. But yeah, Bravo, thanks for having me on. It was good to talk to you. Anytime you want to do this again in the future, let me know. It would have been nice if we had gotten some more of our thoughts out, for the chapter. We were talking about some other stuff before that, but Yeah, I
Nah,
appreciate
for
you having me
sure.
on. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you joining me, bro. We definitely will do this again, 100%. Again, I think we just got to have more time for a long session because it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to talk about. So maybe run it back again next week when the chapter's out again. You know what I'm saying? If you're down. You know what I'm saying? If you're down. So shout out to everybody. Drop a like. Ragnar's channel will be in the description and the title. So appreciate Ragnar. Pull up a lot of great stuff over there as well. And we'll catch y'all in the next one. All right? Peace.
Okay, I start doubting me, I felt lost. I rewrite it.